First, you're going to have to get all your supplies. You're going to need wood glue, you're going to need a snare, you're going to need some wood stain or polyurethane. I got a box of about 50 1-inch screws. But what I'm using for 5 of the sides, I'm going to be using a 1/2-inch mahogany, which wasn't my first choice, but it will work. And for the front side, I'm going to be using 1/8-inch plywood. And also optional, you can get paint and paintbrushes and draw those designs if you want, which is what I'm going to try and do. Also, I got little feet for the bottom, so it's never going to scuff the floor, and also that's going to open up the sound a little bit more. After choosing the dimensions, you're going to have to measure them out, and then later, after they're measured and double measured, you want to cut them. This is probably so dangerous and so frowned upon by the justice for the.
Oh yeah, I like that about that.
If he were to sneeze the wrong way. And then once you cut out your back, you're going to need a hole. Some people will cut out the holes at the sides rather than the back. I'm choosing to put in the back. I try to get it as centered from left to right as possible and a little bit lower. And now I just need to sand it out.
When building this box, we decided to go with the pocket hole jig. It's a this one is actually a Craig Jig Jr. is what it's called. It's meant for making these pocket holes, if you can see this board right now. And what this does is it creates a nice little angle to put your adjacent board together just nice and snug, so it's airtight basically. What you can also do is run a bead of wood glue alongside this edge here before you sink down your adjacent board. So whatever thickness board that you have, you can adjust it to the thickness that you need. So what we're doing right now, this is a 1/2-inch board of mahogany. Then you place it right here on your board that you want to drill into, and then you take your clamp. We're also using a quick grip Irwin clamp. We're going to take that, we're just going to clamp it down as tight as we can go. Make sure each side is flush to the board to make sure it's not going to poke through. It does come with a drill bit, as you can see, and it tapers at the end. And once it gets to its limited part right here, so you can actually set this to a certain size. And in the box, I'll show you right here. In the box, you can set it in. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's actual measurements. And these measurements are for where this piece right here, this little stopper, needs to be set for whatever thickness board you're drilling into, so you don't go through the board. And then I'm just going to go ahead and drill into the pocket hole jig right here. Do that 2 times. And when you take it off, you can see you've got 2 holes right here, perfect for your screws. So you'll put your screws right down in these holes, and then the board that you're going to screw it to, in this case it's going to be the base of the drum. We're going to put the board here, we're going to put a bead of wood glue, and we're going to seal it directly to that board, and it's going to make a nice tight fit. It's going to seal it right directly to that board.
Sponsored by Budweiser.
Sponsored by.
So right now, I'm taking the snare that I bought earlier, and I'm just cutting it in half. So later on, we can screw each half to another piece of wood that's going to go right here, so the snares can be flush against the actual part we're going to be hitting. Very tedious process. So what we have here is we have our 4 main pieces already put together. We have our bottom, our 2 sides, and our back that we put the hole in earlier. And we also put some wood filler in between all the cracks. So measure it to where the top of these snares are going to be flush against the front piece that we're going to put in at the very, very end. All right, so what we did now is we actually screwed in the snares. So as you can see, all we did is 2 screws on the outside, on each side, and we put it at an angle to which when the front board is put on, the snares will be resting flush against it at the top portion. And another thing we did is we put this piece of wood in here. One, it's going to make support a lot better so it doesn't break when I sit on it. And 2, it's going to create a lot more support for the feet when we put it on, because the screws the feet came with are really small. I'm thinking of using longer screws so that way they can go deeper. I have the screws already, now I just got to screw them down, and the top will be a part of the rest of it. Then we can just sand and beautify the box before putting the front on to finish it. I mean, it seems pretty deep though. It seems just as deep as all the other ones.
Maybe just add slowly on the trigger. There you go. That's sunken down more. Sweet.
More?
No, that's good. Yeah, I think I made it nice and tight.
Assembled, except for the tapa. We will be putting this on pretty much, that'll be the very last step. What we're going to be doing next is taking the belt sander, and we're just going to even everything up, just because if you look really hard, it's not even all the way. It's millimeters off in some places, but after we take the belt sander, everything will be smooth and even. This part is just a little bit here, not where. Yeah, I'm not care about it. I mean, you decide if you don't think it's over here. Yeah, right. Back number as well. And this size, worse than side. Yeah, it's worse. Sit down. This one should be. Yeah, it's easy when it's also wood. Honestly, I'm pulling up right now. Just pull right here. Look at it. You know, put on here. And so here, trying to do so much damage to the entire inside of the ankle. I don't know. I'm gonna do. You said you don't make a video. Let's go. See? Look, show you on the camera. See? See? We're making. That's why I'm gonna get a video. When it was done, we're gonna make it. Okay. I know. I'll bring back in the back. We've evened everything out to where it's pretty close to perfect, close enough to perfect. The only issue is the sides on the left and right, as you're sitting on it, are going to be really hard and really sharp. Palm sander is almost as if this machine was built to smooth these edges out right here. So with the wood stain on it, it looks like this. It does make it a lot darker, which I don't mind, but it really brings out every detail of it. So wood stain really does enhance the grain of the wood that you're looking at, which is why we're putting it on. It just looks a lot better. So to apply it, all I do is I take a sponge brush, I dip it in, maybe let it drip a little bit, put it upside down so the entire sponge absorbs it, so it's going to last the entire way through. And then you just, pretty much like painting, you just apply it on. It's a very simple process. And then after you apply all this on, you can let it sit for a few minutes or however long you want. The more you let it sit, the more intense this is going to act. And then you take a cloth, we have some cloths here, and then we'll just wipe it off. And then usually about an hour, you just let it dry. Just like this piece has been drying for at least an hour now. So we're just putting some wood stain on it right now. Before doing this, I'm not sure what it was going to look like. So this other piece of wood that we had to chop off to make the board the right size, I actually applied some stain to this because we weren't going to use it. And I want to see exactly what the difference would look like. I highly recommend testing out pieces of wood before applying the stain. Alright, so the wood stain has dried, and the wood stain that we got is really only to bring out the grain of the wood. It's not going to do too much to protect it. So now we're going to put a coat of polyurethane on it. When deciding where to put the screws, one thing I did do is I left a pretty massive gap in this area, so that way the top of it actually isn't even connected if you look closely to the rest of the drum. So that way you can get a completely different sound by playing on the corners rather than playing on any other area of the drum.